Welcome back to my channel. We're taking it down a notch, doing something a bit more low-key, and we're just talking about what turned out to be a lot of books that I recommend for the fall season. I've seen a few of these fall book recommendation videos floating around, so I'm probably really late. It's November 1st. By the time I post this, it'll probably be later in November, but I picked out 9 books that I thought were great fall reads. Well, 8, there's a caveat. We'll start with the caveat, but can you hear my heater on? It's like a plug-in one. Let me turn it off. Okay, well now my fucking humidifier's on. Okay. So much for trying to keep this video calm and laid back. Anyway, what was I saying? To me, the fall season is funny because it's the most comforting of the seasons. You have milder weather, no mosquitoes, and it just feels nice. Lots of different colors in the air, not in the air. Lots of different colors just around you. You know, the trees are turning colors, but there's lots of different colors because things are dying. At its core, fall is a time of loss and going into dormancy and death. To be dramatic, but trees are dying. Well, they're not dying. They're saying goodbye for the time being to their leaves and going into hibernation. But that's what fall is. It's signaling a period of dormancy. With that, you get a kind of sense of aloneness with fall. Not quite the hardcore isolation of winter, but just a peaceful aloneness. I picked out these books randomly. I didn't come up with the criteria first. I just went to my bookshelf and I was like, well, if a friend asked for a book to read during the fall time, these are the books that I would recommend them. I was thinking about one of the books on this list, and then I stacked them all up and put them on my shelf, waiting for me to film this video, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. All of these books, an essential quality of each of the books is a sense of aloneness, of isolation, of a lonely person, and I think it fits very nicely with fall. They follow characters who find themselves alone and frustrated and sad. A little bit. But the book recommendations, it's a very diverse set of people, per se. There are only 2 men, for you feminists out there. Here are my recommendations for books you should be reading this fall. The first is the caveat. I don't know if I cut this out of the video, but that's Eileen by Oates and moshfegh. And I wanted to recommend My Year of Rest and Relaxation or Death in Her Hands for this video because I think Eileen is perfect for winter time, but there's an Eileen movie coming out, and so I thought it would be a nice time to pick it up before the movie comes out with Anne Hathaway in it. But I read this a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. Very atmospheric. It's a kind of mystery thriller, but it's not very scary except for parts near the end, and then it's not even that bad. It's heavily balanced out in fright factor with Oates and moshfegh's humor. She's very funny. It is set in a small northern town, I want to say. I don't know, maybe I'm making the synopsis up based on my experience with the book, but it feels like it's set in a small northern town where it's snowing, and it follows a woman, and she's very alone. She lives with her father, and she goes to work and becomes obsessed with one of her co-workers. And it's really good if you want a fast-paced, funny book. It felt like a series of unfortunate events, but kind of grown up, particularly the 5th book in this series, if anyone's familiar, the Academy one. Great book. Also, if you want to pick up moshfegh, you can start with this, or this was my first moshfegh. You can pick up My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I think is so funny and so much fun. And it also more fits the bill of the books I'm recommending in this video, that being a sense of aloneness and how to get over it, or not. But Eileen is for this video because there's a movie coming out that I'm excited to see, and the trailer looks really good. The next book I saved, well, I didn't save it. I was in the middle of reading it for the past week or two, and I wanted to film this video so I could get it up for you guys. But I was like, I want to put this book on the list because I was having a really, really good time, and I haven't heard anyone talking about it, so I've just spread the word. And that is out. I meant to look up how to pronounce the author's name before I made this video.
Kirino natsuo. Kirino natsuo.
Okay.
Kirino natsuo.
I'm not gonna do yellow face and like really go for the pronunciation, but the book is out by Natsuo Kirino. And it was a blast. I saw this book at Barnes & Noble. I was looking at the thriller section because I was really in the mood for a thriller, and I haven't come across a really good thriller in a minute. And Vintage is one of my favorite publishing companies. Here it is on the spine. Not because I have any sort of particular fetish for publishing companies, but because I've had really good experiences with a lot of the books they put out. They tend to be like fairly quirky literary fiction books. Well written but fun, which is all I want in a book. But I saw this in the thriller section at Barnes & Noble, and the spine caught my eye because it looked really cool. And then on the front it says it was an Edgar Award finalist, which I'm pretty sure is a famous thriller, dark literary award. This book follows 4 women who work the night shift at a Japanese, this is translated fiction, by the way. I don't know who translated it. Sorry. Look up this edition, though. It's the vintage edition, and I'm pretty sure that there isn't more than one translator. But it's translated from Japanese, and it follows 4 Japanese women who work at a lunch factory and make boxed lunches. And there's a murder that happens, and you follow the aftermath of that murder. It's a slow burn, perfectly taught thriller. I wouldn't say it's extremely fast paced. Kind of like Donna Tartt's The Secret History. It's not, I wouldn't say The Secret History's fast paced. I don't think. I mean, I ate every word up of it. But like The Secret History, Out is not uber fast paced, but the tension is so good the entire time. And everything that happens, it has that sort of Donna Tartt inevitability. She sets up plot so well. And the characters in this, incredible. One of the best character studies I've read in a while. I haven't been reading books that I love, which is sad, but I just haven't been finding anything. So this was a really pleasant surprise when I got to it. And the character portraits, whatever, are really, really good. This book falls under the category of what I'd call a thoughtful thriller, in that it's fun, follows a murder, but it's also very thoughtful on its commentary on being alone, the theme of this vlog, and of relationships with your family, and, well, I guess husbands are your family once you marry them, but, you know, men, and yeah. It is fairly graphic, so if you're a prude, this book is probably not for you. If you're fine with American Psycho, then you'll be fine with this. At points, it's gory and disturbing, but I really, really loved it. It also reminded me of 2 things. In the beginning, uber of Squid Game, and that's probably just me being racist because Squid Game is Korean, I want to say. It's not even the same. I really like the Squid Game TV show, by the way. It made me feel very, very depressed, but it's really good. But that's what this gave in the beginning, because it follows individually different types of poor, rundown people in the city, and I was like, are they gonna collect them and make them like fight to the death or whatever the hell happens in Squid Game. Squid Game is a show on Netflix. It gives the same eerie, bleak vibe of Squid Game. Also, at the end, it gives Gone Girl. And I'm not going to expand on that. But I had the same feeling when I got to the end of Gone Girl. And I was like... But then I was like, well, yeah. That's enough on Out. It was really, really a great time. And she wrote more books. I think only 3 have been translated into English. But I'm really looking forward to getting another one. The next book is for you prudes out there. I told you I put something on this list for everyone. The next book is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This is a thick bitch. It's almost 700 pages, 650-ish. It's like 650 pages. They're fairly decently sized pages. This is from my era when I was afraid to write in books. Do you see the tabs? Anyway, I was out of town and I'd finished the book I brought for that trip, and I was facing a dilemma because I was there for a few more days and I have a lot of unread books at home that I want to read, but I didn't want to buy the book again. You know, like buying another physical copy of it would have felt pretty ridiculous. So I went to thrift stores and looked for either books I had that were cheap and I could just get rid of once I was done with them, or a new book that I was interested in reading, and there was like one thrift store where I was, so that didn't work out. And then I went to a bookstore and the same criteria held, but more stringently, because I was not about to pay full price for a book that I already owned. And I was also like, I can't get a very short book because then I'd be done with it. So I landed on The Woman in White, which was $12. Classics are a lot cheaper than your modern book, like $4 or $5 cheaper. But anyway, I just needed something to keep me busy. The Woman in White is a mystery novel. Is it? I don't know. It's spooky. It's certainly spooky, and it's slow burn. For me, it was slow in a few parts, but it wasn't cringy. I had fun, and it has 2 of the most memorable characters that I've ever read. I still think about the characters, Marion Holcomb and the Count. If you like classics and you want something that's a bit more fun, The Woman in White is for you. There were parts of this that I really liked. Let me see if there's like here's a spooky quote. Do you guess what I'm thinking about? Perhaps I do. I am thinking, he remarked quietly, whether I shall add to the disorder in this room by scattering your brains about the fireplace. Spooky! That's The Woman in White. This is what the back says. A gripping tale of murder, intrigue, madness, and mistaken identity, Collins' psychological thriller has never been out of print in the 140 years since its publication. If you don't mind something a bit slower and you like classics, this was written in the 19th century, I recommend The Woman in White. The next book I read years ago, and I barely remember what it's about, but I remember being very, very pleasantly surprised, and that is Horns. In this obscene Target movie edition cover, Horns by Joe Hill. Look at this cover. I bought it on eBay. That's Daniel Radcliffe. Apparently there was a movie of Horns. And if you didn't know, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. And I don't like Stephen King. Plot twist. I've read one book by him, Misery, and I really didn't like it. I felt like I was trapped by Annie Wilkes, and I wanted my legs to be chopped off. I really didn't like that book. And then I really didn't like the frenetic descriptions of like masturbation and shit. I was like, you know, there's a time and place to be a pervert, and that was not the time or place. So I'm not a big fan of Stephen King. My friend loves Salem's Lot, and for years I've been meaning to give it a go, but I made the mistake of reading Misery first, and I don't. Not. not loving Stephen King. But his son, he did Nepo Baby the right way. Because this book was really, really good. It's a thriller, and it has magical realism. It has magical elements in it, which I also thought would really piss me off. And it didn't. I'm pretty sure it follows a guy who grows horns on his head after his girlfriend is murdered, and he goes around looking for revenge. He gets some sort of gift, I don't remember what it is, but the back says, a macabre gift he intends to use to find the monster who killed his one true love. It's a great story of revenge that I remember feeling sad, or like, I don't know, at the end I was like, that was really good. It's very thoughtful, but it's also fast-paced and fun. I don't know. It's been 4 or 5 years. I really couldn't tell you. But I know that I still think about this book occasionally, and what a pleasantly great time I had reading it. So if you like Stephen King, bump him this fall and give Joe Hill a try. His son. The next book on this list is Alison Lurie's Foreign Affairs. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I hate the most recent cover, so I hunted this bitch down on eBay. And I do like this cover. It's just kind of purple. It follows 2 professors, I think from the same university, and they're both in England, and you follow their relationships. And I thought it would be the relationship between them 2, but it actually follows each of their relationship with another person. And it's about love and being alone, and yeah, that's it. It won the Pulitzer Prize in the 80s. Fun tidbit. So good. If you like a Pulitzer Prize read and you want something sad and lonely, but heartwarming too, but very sad. I think I cried when I read this. I don't remember. But it's very, very, very good. That's all I have to say. The next book, also one of my favorites of all time, is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I loved this book. This was one of my rare binge reads where I really couldn't put it down. It's so fast-paced. Lily King wrote this after her mother died. I think I read somewhere that she was working on a different book and then her mom died. And this was the book that she ended up with. This follows a struggling writer, waitress in Boston, and her experiences with different men, lovers, and her writing career. And it's so good. It nails the fall vibe. It's very cozy, as they say. It's set in the 90s. I feel like books set in the past are particularly appropriate for fall or winter. I don't know, something about it. Super fast paced, probably the fastest paced book on this list. It's funny and sad. All of these books are like, no, they're not. This one particularly is funny and sweet and sad. And I love Lily King's writing. The next book on this list is Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Susann. I'm laughing because the quote on the back always gets me. It's, you know how books on the quotes, books have blurbs on the back by like famous publications or famous authors. Well, this one has a blurb by the author, and it says, the 1960s will be remembered for Andy Warhol, the Beatles, and me. Amen. Who doesn't love a cocky bitch? Valley of the Dolls follows 3 women and their climb to the top of whatever they deem the peak. Whether that be their search for love, for success, money. I'm trying to think of the 3 women. One of them wants fame, one wants love, and the other wants... I don't know, the other one that I can't remember is my favorite character. Jennifer? I'll read you a sentence from the back. Anne, Neely, and Jennifer are ambitious young women in New York City who become best friends as they struggle to make their mark. Eventually, they climb their way to the top of the entertainment industry, only to find that there's no place left to go but down, into the Valley of the Dolls. It's so good. It's very entertaining, well-paced, very compelling characters, and it's sad. The 60s was such a bussin' time for literature, for books. You have this, The Bell Jar, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I I hope I'm not butchering the dates, but all great, great books during the 60s. And this is, I can't say my favorite because I love The Bell Jar, but up there, tied. Maybe even more than The Bell Jar, but it's so good. If you like a story of how ambition and desire can really fuck you up sometimes, this book is for you. And it's a really good story. All of the books on this list, I can confidently say, are good stories with deeper aspects. Just they're good stories, one, and two, they're deeper. The next book on this list is Breathing Lessons by Anne Tyler. And when I finished this book, I was not for me. I think this is another Pulitzer Prize from the 80s. I don't know, it's old. And I also didn't like the modern cover, so I bought this one at a used bookstore, which I don't mind. Anyway, when I finished this book, I was like, I feel really, really shitty. And I didn't particularly enjoy the reading process. It's very readable, easy to read. It's not complicated, but it just wasn't my favorite. The characters kind of pissed me off. They were annoying. But it's a book that after finishing, I have thought about a lot since, particularly in the months after I finished it. It follows a couple, and what comes to mind is that they're on a road trip. And I'm sure that's right to some extent based on I think that's a road on the cover, but they drive a lot, and that's what comes back to me from this novel. But it's about their relationship that's failed/failing, but they're still married. And it was so sad. So sad. Whenever I think of relationships, 70% of the time I think of this book and how it just feels like very hopeless. If you've read any of Anne Tyler's other books, I've read French Braid, very similar. But in terms of like writing style and family drama, but I enjoyed this one. I can't say I enjoyed it particularly a lot, but I really like it. This is one of my the last two books are the weirdest wrecks on this list. It's really good, and if you want a book on the hopelessness of relationships, this is for you. I can't remember if there's an upward inflection at the end that's like, oh, but don't worry. Here's a sad quote. I used to use blue tabs for sad quotes. Here's the quote. I'm past the stage now where I can discard old friends without a thought. I can't afford it. I can't read you the last paragraph because that would be cheating and you have to read the book to get there, but it's sad too. One more quote. Sifting through these layers of belongings while Ira stood mute behind her, Maggie had a sudden view of her life as circular. It forever repeated itself, and it was entirely lacking in hope. This book is just very, very bleak, very sad, and the quotes are, like all books, they're much more effective when they're situated within the context of the novel, but yeah, I've said enough about Breathing Lessons. The last book on this list is Babysitter by Joyce Carol Oates, with the price tag still on the back. It was $30. This is the most I paid for a book new. I'd be wasting money on used books sometimes on eBay, but for like a new release, this is the most I've paid probably ever. I don't pay this much, but the morning it came out at like 10 a.m., I went to my local Barnes & Noble and I was like, hey, do you have Babysitter? And the woman at the register was like, are you looking for the Babysitters Club? Which is, if you don't know, like a kid's comic book in the vein of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but for like even younger little girls. And I was like, do I look old enough to have a daughter, or do I just give off pervert vibes? And then the person next to her, the other cashier, well, I cocked my head at her and was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. The other one was like, oh, Joyce Carol Oates. And I was like, yeah. And he said, oh, we got a copy in this morning. And I said, great, where is it? And he said, we just sold it. I said, you got one copy in? And he said, yeah. Do you want me to order you one? I said, why would you order one copy of a new release from one of America's most prolific writers and then tell me you had it before telling me you sold it? Then I drove 30 minutes to a Books A Million and bought this. This is an awesome cover, by the way. Newspaper clippings. Babysitter is not a perfect novel. I'll talk about what I liked about this book before shedding on it, because that wouldn't be a good recommendation video if all I did was trash on these books. But Babysitter is about a mother of children and about a serial killer in Chicago, I want to say. I'm almost sure it's Chicago. Detroit. Probably Chicago. And it follows their paths. The mother of 2 children, I think. And she has a husband. And it follows her relationship with her husband and her children. And she's a very lonely woman. You also get bits of a serial killer named Babysitter who murders children, and it's very graphic and disturbing. The things that most stick out about this novel to me are an extreme sense of bleakness. Bleak is such a silly word, but bleakness, it's bleak. It made me feel bleak. I was most compelled by the mother story and by Joyce Carol Oates. She's a master. She's a master of her craft. Nobody is doing it like Joyce, truly. She's very smart, knows how to write a damn book, and she's very creative in a sense that doesn't piss me off. I am not one for creative books. I don't like when people... I saw this book recently and it's like half of the pages are cut out or whatever. I was like, not for me. I don't like a creative book. And what is the book, like House of Leaves or something? I don't like creative structure. When it gets in the way of good storytelling. Like, I couldn't care less if a story, book, whatever, piece of art is creative if it's not engaging, entertaining, a good story, a good piece of art, a fun piece of art, per se. I'm pretty sure the timeline in this is butchered. This novel gave me vertigo. It's very confusing and unsettling. And it returns to this image. This is the other thing that I really remember and love the book for. And that's for the dominating image of a woman going up an elevator and walking down in high heels, a plush carpet at a hotel, approaching a door. And it's such a distinct image. And you'll get like... It's funny, as I'm talking about the book now, everything's like slowly coming back to me. But I'm pretty sure it mixes in stories of the current timeline with that image of the woman going up the elevator. It's a glass elevator. You can tell that the image is really stuck with me. It intertwines her going up the elevator with her unfolding day-to-day experiences. And it creates great tension. Lots of tension in this book. Very unsettling. If you want a creative, well-written, scary, lonely thriller, this book is for you. Someone's like walking across my arm, about to strangle me. The only aspect of this book that I remember actively being like, is Joyce Carol Oates' comments on race, which they're not like, she's not a racist, but they were just too surface level. There was nothing new or original, and I was like, sorry. There was nothing thoughtful about her critique of race. Her critique of racism. It's like, of course, everyone's a raging racist in like Chicago in the 70s. Here's a quote I liked. I just flipped to a random page in the book. Now I'm trying to find a better quote. Here's the quote. One of those pale blue, dreamy, impressionist paintings so popular with museum visitors. Art that gives comfort. Art with no sharp lines, edges. Art without shadows. Art that doesn't mirror life but the undulations of life. shimmering color sensations like the most exquisite silk wallpaper. I really like the bit about art that doesn't mirror life, but the undulations of life. Thought it was really good. That's it for my fall recommendations. I have books that I really like that I didn't particularly enjoy the process of reading, but I enjoyed the process of reading all of these tremendously safe breathing lessons, which is still fine, but overall very worthwhile. I think fall is a time to enjoy yourself. I think all time is a time to enjoy yourself, but particularly fall. So I tried to recommend books that are engaging and fun, and that I had a good time reading with, like I said earlier, something deeper to them. I hope you enjoy these books. I'll see you soon.